Who were the sons of God? The identity of the sons of God in Genesis chapter 6, verse 1-2, is one of the Bible's most enigmatic and debated mysteries. The passage states, "Now it came about when mankind began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of mankind were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose." This cryptic reference, coupled with the mention of the Nephilim in Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, has sparked centuries of speculation. Who were these sons of God? Were they angelic beings, human descendants of Seth, tyrannical rulers, or members of a divine council? The interpretive landscape. The brevity of Genesis 6, 1-4, combined with its archaic language and worldview, invites multiple interpretations. The phrase sons of God appears elsewhere in the Old Testament, notably in Job, providing clues but no definitive answer. The daughters of mankind and the resulting offspring, often linked to the Nephilim, add further complexity. 4 primary interpretations dominate scholarly and traditional discussions, each rooted in different textual, theological, and cultural assumptions. The angelic interpretation. The first interpretation posits that the sons of God were angelic beings who transgressed divine boundaries by marrying human women. This view, prevalent in early Jewish and Christian traditions, draws on texts like the Book of Enoch, 1 Enoch 6-11, a Second Temple work that describes watchers, angels, descending to earth, lusting after women, and producing giant offspring, the Nephilim. Biblical support includes Job 1, verse 6, chapter 2, verse 1, and chapter 38, verse 7, where sons of God appear as heavenly beings presenting themselves before God or rejoicing at creation. The New Testament may echo this view, as Jude 1, 6-7 mentions angels who did not keep their own domain and committed sexual sin, possibly alluding to Genesis 6. This interpretation aligns with ancient Near Eastern myths of divine human unions and fits the supernatural tone of Genesis 6, 1-4, especially the Nephilim's description as mighty men and men of renown, Genesis 6, 4. The term B'nai Ha-Elohim often denotes spiritual beings in the Old Testament, and the transgression explains the flood as divine judgment, Genesis 6, 5-7. The idea of angels marrying humans raises theological questions. Jesus states in Matthew 22:30 that angels do not marry, though this may apply to their heavenly state, not a fallen one. The canonical text lacks explicit details about angels descending, relying on extra-biblical sources like 1 Enoch for clarity. Additionally, the biological feasibility of angel-human unions is speculative, as angels are typically depicted as spiritual, not physical beings. 2. The Sethite interpretation. The second view identifies the sons of God as the godly descendants of Seth, Adam's third son, and the daughters of mankind, as women from Cain's ungodly lineage. This human-centric interpretation emerged in early Christian exegesis, partly to avoid the supernatural implications of the angelic view. It frames Genesis 6 as a moral lesson about the righteous, Seth's line, intermarrying with the wicked, Cain's line, leading to societal corruption and the flood. This view avoids speculative supernatural elements, grounding the narrative in human history. Genesis 4-5 contrasts Cain's rebellious line, for example, Lamech's violence, Genesis 4, 23-24, with Seth's faithful one, for example, men began to call upon the name of the Lord, Genesis 4, 26. The emphasis on human sin in Genesis 6, 5-7, supports a moral decline driven by human choices. The text does not explicitly link the sons of God to Seth or the daughters of mankind to Cain. The term B'nai Ha-Elohim is never used for humans elsewhere in the Old Testament, making this interpretation less linguistically natural. Additionally, the Nephilim's extraordinary nature, Genesis 6, 4, is harder to explain as mere human offspring, and the view struggles to account for the passage's cosmic tone. 3. The ruler's interpretation. The third interpretation suggests that the sons of God were tyrannical rulers or nobles, possibly descendants of Lamech, Genesis 4, 19-24, who abused their power by taking women as wives. This view interprets B'nai Ha-Elohim as sons of the gods, or divinely appointed leaders, reflecting ancient Near Eastern idioms, where kings or elites were called divine sons. For example, Psalms 2:7. The phrase, whomever they chose, Genesis 6:2, suggests coercive polygamy, aligning with Lamech's violent and polygamous behavior. This view keeps the narrative human-focused, avoiding supernatural or genealogical assumptions. It fits the social context of Genesis 6:5, where human wickedness escalates and parallels ancient stories of powerful men exploiting women. The Nephilim could be seen as their notorious offspring, elevated by their father's status. Like the Sethite view, this interpretation struggles with the term B'nai Ha-Elohim, which typically denotes heavenly beings, not human rulers. The Nephilim's description as giants or mighty men, Genesis 6:4, is less compelling if they are merely children of human elites. The view also lacks direct textual support for identifying the sons of God as rulers. 4. The Divine Council. Interpretation. The fourth and favored interpretation posits that the sons of God were members of God's divine council, distinct heavenly beings who dwelt in the divine realm, but were not angels. This view draws on passages like Psalm 82, 1, where God presides over a council of gods, and Job 1, verse 6, Job 2, 2 verse 1, and Job 38, verse 7, where the sons of God participate in heavenly assemblies. These beings, subservient to the Lord, transgressed by marrying human women, producing the Nephilim. This interpretation aligns with the linguistic use of B'nai Ha-Elohim as heavenly beings, and the ancient worldview of a divine council. For example, 1 Kings 22:19-20, Isaiah 6:6-8. It explains the Nephilim's extraordinary nature as divine human hybrids, and the flood as judgment for cosmic rebellion. The Garden of Eden, described as a mountain in Ezekiel 28:12-13, serves as a bridge between heaven and earth, supporting the idea of divine beings interacting with humans in a sacred space. Like the angelic view, this interpretation relies on a supernatural framework that may feel speculative to modern readers. The distinction between divine council members and angels is not always clear in Scripture, and the text does not explicitly describe these beings descending to earth. The theological implications of divine beings sinning also require careful handling,